Welcome back to the garage. Today, we're gonna finish this axle, one way or another. Pinion's back out. It's time to make some setup bearings. So what I've pulled off is gonna become my setup bearings, and I've got a stack of new ones right there. So, gotta grind out the inside, and here's how I'm gonna accomplish that. Got the old drill and the vise with a grinder, and this thing will lock. So let's grind up some setup bearings. I'm gonna be here for a minute. Well, I think we've got it. Nice slip fit. That should help me figure it out. Slip fit achieved. Let's see, we're at $10 to $12. It's a bit uneven. It's going as high as, I don't know, around 20 right here. Well, with the oil worked in there, it's actually closer to like 8. So I might not actually have enough. So let's tear it down and redo it. Well, we worked up to 54. How about this one? It's still just a little bit high. Real close though. Real close. Well, spinning it this way, there's 20. Dialing it in, let's just add one more shim. My friends, I have done some kind of sketchy and janky stuff on the channel before, but never have I done something this freaking sketchy. I don't know if this is even gonna end up in the video, but we'll see. Check this out. It would be really nice if I had a lathe so I could clean up some of these surfaces, especially this seal surface on this, but I don't. But I do have a few spare bearings and races that are, let's be honest, they're garbage. But for just a little bit of light use, this might actually work. So I'm gonna do with this unholy union between this drill chuck and this axle shaft end. And I'm gonna see if I can spin it up just enough that I can clean up these surfaces. I might have to JB weld that and hope, because it's a little bit pitted as is. But yeah, don't do what I do, guys. This is sketchy as heck. Oh my God, this might actually work. And my shutoff is the power bar. So I know I've been back and forth all over this axle trying to figure things out. Go easy on me, it's my first axle rebuild ever. But I think I've got the preload almost figured out. It'll sometimes peak up to about 25 to 28. It's not the smoothest thing right now, but for the most part, it's actually around 18 to 20. So I think if I just put a couple more thou of shim in there, I'll probably replace the 5 with one of the 8s, and that'll get me right about dialed in where I need to be. But thanks to Sal Walter from Vintage Jeeper, who chatted with me on Facebook, I think we figured out why this thing is weird and inconsistent. So the original Salisbury gears, the early ones, this one is a 48, I believe, date code. So the earlier ones required the spacer in here because the shoulder here, I don't know if you can see that in this lighting, but yeah, the shoulder here is rounded. There wasn't a flat surface for the shim pack to sit on, so they put one in there for it. Well, you guys have seen the state of this thing and how it's come back from the dead. But the surface of this is pitted to heck. It was really badly rusted. I media blasted it clean, but I think it's just uneven. Because on this side, you can kind of see, I doubt if you'll be able to see it on video, but this side is more or less flat. This side, on one side it is lower. That was probably the cause of my issues. On later ring and pinion sets for the Dana 41, they had a square shoulder right there, and the shim pack would just sit right on top of that. Well, I lucked out with an aftermarket set that was the later style, so that sleeve there is redundant. I didn't know that. Now I do. So it's out, and the shims are just sitting right on the square shoulder of the new pinion, and that is moving a heck of a lot smoother and better. So I think I'll be able to figure this one out pretty quick. I'm probably going to pull the 5,000th shim out of there and put in an 8,000th shim, and that'll probably get it right about where it needs to be. And then I can move on to the carrier. So let's do that real quick. Yep. Ouch. So, no shims whatsoever. We're supposed to get this right up against the pinion to where we only have 1 or 2 thou of backlash. And then we bust out the feeler gauges. As usual, don't take this as instructional. I'm still getting it figured out. A little bit of trial and error here, but I've got, per the manual, the ring gear pushed up against the pinion with only, it says like 1 to 2 thou of clearance. I'm actually at like 2 3/4 thou clearance, whatever. Where, man, if we could just use metric, this would be just so much easier, but I digress. And I've got some shims in here, some feeler gauges. So that's about 38 on one side and, what's that, 40 on the other side. Okay, I'll buy that. And then the manual says to add whatever the feeler gauges say, plus 15 on the ring side. And that's critical because that actually sets the preload on both of these carrier bearings. So, let me translate feeler gauges into shim pack. All right, thusly converted to shim packs instead. That feels too loose. Okay, now with the additional 15 thousandths additional on the side facing the ring. This should actually be more difficult to get in. Come on. All right. Now in theory, I should have very little backlash, but it should be between 5 and 10 thousandths if I've done this right. And that is 7 thousandths, right in the middle of spec. So these are the correct shim packs. So this is why you don't try to check for spec until things are actually tightened down. Now that the bearing caps are on, we've got 5 thou of in play here. So that's in spec. It's supposed to be between 5 and 10. I'd rather it be 7, but this is a brand new ring gear and pinion. So maybe being tight is okay, but this all has to come apart anyway. But it's almost time to check the pattern and see where we're at. Yeah. Well, at this point, there's not much left to do but check the pattern. It's the first time for everything. It's one of those things, you know, I've seen it done by many people over the years, and I have never done one before, but I hope I can figure it out. All right, let's get some compound on here. 5 teeth is probably good enough to establish a pattern. Now, when I've seen this done, you're supposed to put a load, like if you're spinning it from the ring gear side with a wrench, you put a load on the yoke. If you're spinning from the yoke, put a little bit of load on the ring gear side just for some resistance. And reverse. It's hard to read this. Sure, I've got some contact up here, but it's also really far forward, but it is right in the middle on the toe side, right in the middle. On the heel side, it's a bit high. As a final check here, I want to check the run out on the ring gear. I've got a little Sharpie mark here. This would indicate a sprung case after all this. I can't remember the spec, if it's 3 thousandths or 6 thousandths. I want to say it's 6, but let's just watch that gauge here, give it a complete revolution. Now there are some casting imperfections on this. Coming up here, you'll see the gauge just go crazy. A little bit. There's one, there's another. A little bit out. A little bit more, there's about 3 thousandths. And as we get right back to where we started, so there's a little bit of wobble, but it's within spec. Well, the backlash is still right at 5, maybe just a hair over it. Let's check the pattern again. Since I'm actually here looking closely for patterns and such, here, come here, get in here. Do you guys see that? It looks almost like a wear pattern, but it's only right there, and it's nowhere else on the rest of this ring gear. This thing was sold to me as new old stock. I'm beginning to question that. Like maybe it was installed and the pinion just sat here for a while and maybe had some moisture in there and got some surface corrosion on it. Is that going to affect what I'm doing here? But you know what? It's what I got, so we're going to run it. Glad I brought the heater out here. This would be pretty miserable without it. There's a good 5-6 teeth coated. That's probably too much, but why not? All right, a little bit of resistance on there once I get it to the marking compound. All right. Now let's see what we got. So I lost the audio for this because it didn't actually record. You see, I've got these fancy new microphones, but I forgot to turn it on for this one. Oops. But presumably I'm grumbling about how I changed something, ran the pattern, and it's still not right. So I have to do it again. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Moving on. Well, after taking this apart and putting it back together and swapping sims around more times than I'd like to admit, I think it's time to check the pattern again. This time I'm going to go ahead and chuck it up on this this drill here and use this to put some resistance on it, put a load on it, and we'll see how this goes. Alright, that wasn't perfect, but saved some work. Let's see what we got. We're still a little bit low on the drive, but man, the pattern here is good. That is nice and nearly centered. It's probably just a hair high, but that's about the clearest pattern I've had. It looks to be a hair low though. Alright, it's been apart and back together 20 times. I think I've got it. I hope I've got it. But we're gonna run the pattern. In fact, this time I'm so hopeful that I've got marking compound on both sides of the ring gear. So, let's see. Oop. That's right in the center on the drive side. How about the coast side? It's a little inside, but it is right in the middle. Oh, you guys don't know the relief unless you've done this before, and then you do actually know the relief. Okay, that side's a little bit, This side is a little bit high, but that side's okay. Unless that's just smudging from all the compound, spinning a few times too many. I don't know. I think we're finally good. I think we're gonna send it. Now it's time to take it all back apart and put it back together with the actual bearings. Not the setup bearings. And then check it one more time afterwards. Yes, I totally did. Because it's 4 degrees out there, and it's like 80 right here. I mean, come on. There's no contest. But I gotta run through this one more time, because I'm looking at the pattern. For a new gear, it should be somewhere else. Even though it's kind of there, it's also kind of not. So I'm going to run through all that off camera because I've got like 20 gigs of footage of me doing the same thing over and over and over and it not being right. And we don't need any more of that. So I'll catch you guys when it's actually done. As I almost come to a close on this project, I looked back and started doing the editing for this video. I guess this will be part 6. And it's been a really transformative process, I guess, not only for the axle, which went from boat anchor to nearly fully set up and ready to go, but me, because I was looking back and I saw that, well, I didn't look like Luigi for one, but I had the really short beard and the short, fresh haircut at the beginning of this episode. I was like season 3 or season 4 Riker from The Next Generation. And now I've turned into crazy Riker from that alternate timeline with the beard and all that. So, yeah, very, very transformative. But let's finish transforming this into a fully set up axle. It's time to put final bearings on and everything else. Guys, I couldn't leave it alone. I'm such an obsessive perfectionist. I know that perfectionism is like the enemy of progress. But I just had to try one more time because I was thinking about what Metal Shaper said in his videos. Use the fewest amount of shims that you have to get the desired thickness. And I had to pull the pinion again because I knew that there were 2 4s in there. So I replaced the 2 4s with a 9. I want to just nudge it just ever so slightly up. And I know that small changes can make big differences. I know, but when I run the pattern one more time, I'm at backlash wise, I'm at 6, which is better than like 8 or 8.5 where it was. So it's a little bit tighter. Let's run the pattern one more time, and let's hope it didn't change enough. A little bit too fast, but okay. How? It's at the edge. I have a nice pattern I can see, but it's still high. How? And it's right at the heel. Oh, but well, that's the thing. Like one side is beautiful, and the other side, because there's just a little bit of wobble in the gear, it's within spec. It's right at 3 thou, but it's in spec. It's right at the toe. It's right in the middle, quite well centered. Oh, gang, it's close enough. I think we're gonna send it. Well, we're back out here in the garage for once. Unseasonably warm day. I've got the new bearings pressed on the new axle shafts, and I've been out here cleaning up these bearing retainers and shims. Got the bearings half-heartedly covered in plastic just to keep some of the surface rust away. These took a lot more effort than I expected to clean up to this point, but they're actually mostly clean. And over here in the soup, got the hardware, all 12 of them. They cleaned up okay. I might just reuse those after running a tap and die through them. Just get them all nice and cleaned up. Forward progress though, it's been a crazy time lately. One bit of detail on this, just full disclosure. This cup does not really fit all that well. It's a little bit loose in the case, so I do have some of the old Loctite 620 bearing retaining compound. I've put a few dings with a punch on the edges, and with any luck that should retain the bearing a little bit better. This case was a little bit more worn than I would have liked, but that's kind of how it goes. All right, it's squeezing out, so I think that pretty well covers it. Forgot to start recording, but time to get the final bearings on here. Just using the, what's left of the old one. I've already smashed my thumb twice, so yeah. Yeah, that looks good. All right, final bearings are on for the carrier. And that preload needs work. We're at like 30. Need to add another shim, and that's probably why I have a shim sitting over here. All right, all 4 bolts to 40 foot-pounds, which is right between the spec of 38 to 42. Done. All right, everything is now tightened to spec. Let's check the backlash here. Now with the setup bearings, it was a pretty tight 5 thousandths. It was a little tight, but it's a new gear, zeroed. Well, that's a hair under 8. That's still within spec. I would have liked it to be a little tighter at the end, but that's where we're at. All right. This is still the setup bearing. I want to do this just one more time. I don't know how it's supposed to feel, but that feels pretty close. A little bit of oil on the bearing, give it a couple spins. And that's 15, maybe 16. Still right about in the middle of spec. That feels pretty good. I actually feel confident about that. And I'm gonna have to repaint this thing after all this, aren't I? But let's get this off. Let's get the other yoke on and get the final bearing in. Now this outer bearing to me has always been the most difficult part. You kind of got to hold on to this pinion and then tap on it with a punch carefully and evenly. And I'm not quite sure how folks do this, but it's got to be tapped on. So I'm going to be here a minute. All right, way longer than I'd like to admit. That bearing is in. Bring this to, I believe, 100 is what this was set to. I already threw some oil on here. All right, let's see. It's hovering right around 15. Between 10, maybe I'm just misreading it, but kind of wish I had one of those digital ones that'll show you the max, but looks to be around 15. Feels okay, spins. Not a lot of, well, not any up and down play on that, so I think I might actually have it. But now I need to recheck the pattern. Just a hair over 5, which is where I wanted it to be from the start. Okay, let's check the pattern. I wasn't getting very good results with the compound alone, but I heard that if you mix it with just a little bit of oil, like some 90 weight, the same stuff you'd put in here, it reads a lot better. All right, centered. That's about almost exactly what it was before. I think. What about the coast side? It's moved out to the heel just a little bit, but it is still centered. So that is still within the acceptable pattern that I was looking for. Oh. Setup yoke is off for the last time. Now for a few final touches. The oil slinger. I'm going to use one of these new style pinion seals. I figure it has the best chance of working because this is a new yoke, or a new to me yoke. It's very, very smooth, great surface. I have high hopes for it. And of course, paper seal. I'll make sure all that's on there. This surface is very clean already. And the spring side goes inside. Well, this thing is actually deforming, and I'm damaging the stuff that I'm actually supposed to be using as a seal, the metal material on this. So not all that pleased with this. Might need a plan B. My friends, plan B. This thing just doesn't want to work, but these old style ones are still available. You can still get them. So let's see how this works. As I recall, it actually needs to go down a little bit further. It doesn't sit flush. It sits further down. What do I have that fits that? 70-year-old fidget spinner from the transmission. Not quite. How about this race? Yeah. Now I want this seal to not have a dry start. So I'm gonna throw some grease on here, give it the best chance it can get. A lot harder to turn now that it's got that seal on it, but that's the way it is from what I understand. That feels way, way too tight now. What have I missed? I'm going to start with what was here before, making sure the drain hole is at the bottom and the bottom is over here. All right, got the dial indicator set up. Wow. There is zero end play on both sides. I actually tested the other side already. I was hoping there was a fine adjustment somewhere, but yeah, these don't move anywhere. Oof, forgot to turn on my fancy microphones again. Oh well. Had to go buy some shims. That took a minute to get in, but here they are. At this point, I've already nudged the axle shafts back out, so there is for sure some end play. And I've set up a dial indicator to go check and make sure I have plenty. And it's a little bit less, now that I've read a little bit more, maybe I should have had a little bit more, but it's about 3.5 thousandths there. I guess depending on where that dial indicator is sitting on that axle shaft, it's not a flat end, but it's more than I had. So traditional logic, of course, says you should only put shims on one side. If you just put the retainer on one side, it's fixed, and then you can go adjust the other side as needed. In my case, I already had shims on both sides, so I'm kind of following that logic by not messing with the other side and just adjusting this side that's already taken apart. So added one of the shims. Those are really thin shims that you can get these days, none of the thick ones. But checking the dial indicator, and it's at this point that I found out that once I have everything kind of torqued down, I don't have enough end play. It's at about 2 thousandths. So off camera on the other side, I took it apart, added one of the new thin shims, put it back together. It's all tightened down, and now I have right at, that's about 3.5 thousandths of end play. So that's in spec. Now, with my memory being what it is lately, I wanted to double check the spec, because apparently depending on which manual you read and who you listen to, the specs vary pretty wildly. This version of the manual says between 3 and 7 thousandths. Somewhere else I'd read 1 to 3. Metal Shaper says 1 to 6. Either way, 3 thousandths, maybe 3.25 thousandths is within spec, so I'm okay with this. That's just another thing to check, though. Everyone says read the manual, follow the manual. Which one? And now a tale of two gaskets. I don't know, let's see which way, there we go. I don't know who makes these brown paper ones, but they're wrong. This does not line up. This is off by 1/4 of an inch. There's no way this thing works. I picked up a few different gaskets while preparing for this project. I don't know where this one came from, but this gray one is pretty much spot on. So be careful who you buy your gaskets from, because yeah, sometimes the cheap ones are cheap for a reason. Now I'm going to hold off on the final Permatex on this gasket just for now. I'm still probably going to take this apart once more to do a little bit of paint touch-up, which is going to be just, boring and not necessary to do on camera. Now, some of you might be saying, I forgot something. The brake line holder is not forgotten. I just need to drill out the snapped off bolt, and I'll put that on. That's another thing I'm waiting on, but that'll be on there as well. And with that, I am pretty confident in saying this thing is 99% done. There's a few little odds and ends left to do. As mentioned, I want that little brake fitting bracket here. I need to fix that off camera and put it back on here. I'll do the final Permatex on here once I take it all apart. And I'm going to respray the whole thing because there's red primer showing through everywhere where it's just been bumped around for the past 6 months. I can't believe it's taken that long, but sometimes life just happens and you got to prioritize other things, and that's just kind of how it's been. I know you guys probably understand, but those few things. I'm gonna just take the brake backing plates off the other axle. They're new pretty much anyways, so no need to rebuy on that. I have the seals that go with those as well. That'll get done. I'm gonna have to rob the pinion yoke off of the other axle because apparently nobody sells the correct Dana 44 metal dust shield that goes over the back of one of these. There's one vendor that says they have it, but what they send you is the one for Dana 18, and it's just too small, it won't fit. I tried to modify it as you saw, and it just didn't work. But with all that, this thing's pretty much ready to go. It's gonna be a little bit before I actually install it, but I do have all the suspension components to do at the same time. New leaf springs, bolts and shocks and everything. It just makes more sense to do it all at once. So I'll get it done. So if you guys have noticed along the way, if I have done anything wrong here, let me know in the comments below. I take it as constructive criticism because I'm still learning, and I'll make sure it's right before all of this is finalized. But yeah, it's been a journey. Can you take an abandoned Dana 41 axle and bring it back from the state you guys saw that it was in? Yes. But what does it cost? So much. It costs so much. And yes, I know at this point it would have been quicker and cheaper to make the 1,600-mile round trip up to Illinois, where I know a guy who's got Dana 41s and 44s just stacked up in his backyard, and I could have gotten a Dana 44 instead and had a little bit better performance out of it, but I wouldn't have learned anything. And I've learned a great deal, especially lessons about money. Yeah. But thanks for watching, thanks for bearing with me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.